So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to my Be Inspired event to discover Namibia. A little bit different to events that I've done before, and a very exciting destination. So, I'm Sally. For the benefit of those of you on this evening that don't know me, I'm Sally Murray. I'm a personal travel counsellor based in the UK. I know we do have a few international people joining us this evening, but the event is sort of focused on sort of UK departures to Namibia, but as a destination and some inspiration, and hopefully this is of benefit. The like I say, Ranvig is with me this evening. So Ranvig, we work with very, very closely as a destination specialist for Namibia. And what Ranvig doesn't know about Namibia is not worth knowing. She's fantastic knowledge, and we work with her as a supplier to put tailor-made adventures together, tailored to what you want to do in the destination. And the image behind me shows some of the sand dunes, which are a unique feature of Namibia in itself, but there's lots more to discover. So I'm going to be quiet now and just let one more person in while I'm talking. I'm going to hand over to you, Ranvig, if you're okay to take over.
Thank you, Sally. Here we go. Technical stuff, just sharing my screen. So thanks for that, Sally. My name is Ranweg, and I'm very excited to take you to one of the most beautiful countries in the world, in my humble opinion, Namibia. Can you maybe just confirm that you can see Namibia on your screen? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So I start with this image here because I think this is probably one of my favorite pictures of all time, for the simple fact that we were exploring there, me and my family, back in 2015. And at 2015, that's quite a few years ago. So I had a very old iPhone, and looking there at my family who's in front of me, I just thought, what a surreal sight. And I picked up my iPhone and I just snapped this off. No Photoshop, nothing. And I really just felt like my family had been thrown into a painting, because that is actually what Dead Flay is all about. And of course, I will tell you about Dead Flay. But I want to start with just a few quick facts, because we feel that in many cases people don't really know a lot about Namibia. It is still quite the hidden gem, to be honest. So just some quick facts. The international airports of Namibia are Windhoek, and we also have one in Walvis Bay, which is by the coast. But Windhoek is the capital city, so this is where most international flights will come from. It is a huge country, 825,000 square kilometers, which means it's a very, very large country with a population of only 2.5 million people in the entire country. This makes Namibia officially the second least densely populated country in the world. And now during COVID times, don't you wish you were there? No people. Namibia is actually home to the largest cheetah population in the whole world. I'll of course go into detail about this later. We have the highest sand dunes in the world. We are also home to the incredible desert adapted elephant, which can only be found in two places, Namibia and Mali. We have 13 different ethnic groups, which is incredible. You can experience so much culture in Namibia with these 13 different ethnic groups. All of them speak their own language. My favorite, hands down, my favorite fact about Namibia is that it is the first country in the entire world to implement conservation into its constitution. Now, this is a third world country. So for me, that is absolutely mind blowing that they implemented conservation into its constitution. You will see this throughout the presentation, how important conservation is to Namibia and Namibians. It's not only the animals, it's also their entire landscape and everything. Namibia is virtually malaria free. I'm not allowed to say that it's completely malaria free, because the northern part of the country is placed in a minor risk zone of malaria. The locals won't agree with this in any way. They are very firm that malaria just doesn't exist anywhere in the country. But it's absolutely up to you whether you take the tablets or not. Of course, just discuss with your doctor, please, before you go to Namibia. There is a free tourist visa to Namibia for most European countries and actually many, many countries globally. I can tell you, for example, for the UK citizens, you get a free tourist visa. You literally just get the stamp free of charge when you arrive into the country for up to 90 days. So it's very easy to travel there. Namibia is the safest country in Africa to travel to. It is actually considered equally, or even if not more so, safe than Europe. When to travel to Namibia, hands down, a year-round destination. All year round, you can travel to Namibia. So it is literally whenever suits you. When your holiday from work is, or children's school holidays, whatever it is, you can travel to Namibia. But of course, there are seasons. So we have the winter season, which is what we call the dry season between May and October. June, July, and August in particular is dry season. Now, this is the winter season in Namibia. And because it's dry season, it simply means that the animals are that much more reliant on the water holes. So you are more likely to see more wildlife than otherwise. However, remember it's the winter season, so it will be cold. Before sunrise and after sunset, it will actually be cold. And not only that, but June, July, August is actually very busy as well in Namibia, because this is when South Africans and Germans typically come to holiday in Namibia. So it's going to be busier than otherwise. With that being said, we have the lower season, which is November to April, which I'm not even going to call wet season, because Namibians don't call it wet season. They call it green season, for the very good reason that you can see that the rainfall in their so-called rainy season is still really nothing at all. It is a desert climate. So that's why they call it the green season. If we are lucky enough to see some rain in some parts of the country, it's usually in the north only, and it's usually a couple of showers during the day if we're lucky. But it's a dry climate, so it's never humid or unbearably hot or anything. Considering that, we at OBO, we actually recommend the low season. That's our favorite season. November to April is a gorgeous time to travel to Namibia. In the deserts, it will potentially reach up to 40 degrees, but it's not humid. It's dry heat, so very bearable. We also plan every single day, and every program that we do is always around sunrise or sunset when it's still mild. Um, During the hottest hours of the day, we are allowing you free time at the pools at the lodge. So it's all very well controlled, and these are in our opinion, the best times to travel. Enough about the facts. Let's dive right into the beautiful country of Namibia. Now, as I told you earlier, it's a humongous country, and Sally wouldn't be very happy if I were to speak here for hours and hours and hours. So, because that's what I could do with Namibia. So I'm actually going to focus on something that we call the highlights of Namibia, and that is this sort of circle tour. And during the highlights of Namibia, where you can see on the map here, this is where you will really see sort of the best of Namibia. And then, of course, there's more to it, but we don't have time for that. If you look at the map, if you haven't noticed, I love maps. So I will kind of be bringing you your mind to where you're located in Namibia. You can see here the country. Windhoek is the capital airport, located, the capital city, sorry, is located right here centrally in the country. I'm not going to speak about Windhoek, and the reason for that is very simple. It's that it's simply an industrial capital. So what we always say is that you can come to Windhoek and rest either after or before a long flight, but there's no real reason to stay there. We recommend that you go out and you actually see what Namibia has to offer. So without further ado, I'm going to take you down south. Here in the south, you will find the highest sand dunes in the world in this area called Sossusvlei. This is the highest sand dunes in the world, and they are so unique because they are rich of iron. So they're kind of reddish in color, which makes them exceptionally beautiful as well. So the scenery that you will explore in the entire Sossusvlei area is unlike anything you'll see anywhere else. Interesting fact as well about the southern parts of Namibia is that there's not that much wildlife. You won't see elephants or lions or any of those major safari African animals, but we will, for example, have the oryx everywhere in the country. The oryx is the Namibian animal. What do you call it? The traditional animal? and that's the oryx, because the oryx can be found everywhere. It's such a sturdy antelope that they can go days after days without water. So you will find the oryx even climbing some of the sand dunes, most typically. Dead flay, without a doubt, this is iconic to Namibia. I'm sure that if you've ever seen anything about Namibia, it must have been the dead flay because it is so unique to this country. In the heart of Sossus Flay, right nestled there between all of the humongous sand dunes, there's this huge white clay pan. In this clay pan, we have these trees which are completely dead. All of these trees, as you can see, they're standing right up there, completely dead. They've been there for 900 years, and 600 of those years they've been dead. They're not petrified, interestingly enough. They are, in fact, simply sunburnt. So they're sunburnt, they died, and they're just standing there. It is such a surreal and unique sight. And very good reason why we say that when you visit Namibia, especially for the first time, you have to see this site, which is Dead Flay. One of my favorite things to do with my groups when I'm traveling with my groups in Namibia is to climb some of these sand dunes as well, because that's what you can do. In Sossus Flay, you actually have a sand dune called Big Daddy, which is claimed to be the world's largest sand dune at 350 meters. That's 350 meters of sand. That's actually the sand dune that's right behind Sally there that my friends are running down. So you will see here one of these sand dunes here is Big Daddy. You can climb up. It's a bit difficult because it's sand. So you basically climb one step and you sink half a step back. But it will take about just over an hour, and your reward will be this scenery here in this bottom picture, because this you can only see from once you've climbed the sand dunes. And of course, even better reward is that you run down. Running down these sand dunes is incredible fun. The oldest person I've had on one of my groups actually climbed the sand dune with me. He was 86 years old and he went for it. And even he behaved like a 15-year-old teenager running down the sand dune, giggling. And it's incredible fun. What you can do down south as well is explore the incredible Sestrium Canyon, which is located very close to Sossus Flay itself. And you can go hot air ballooning. That is a bucket list ticker for many people. And if there's any place in the world you should hot air balloon, it should be here, because we go at sunrise, hot air balloon over the oldest desert in the world, the Namib Desert, and the dunes of Sossus Flay. We land after sunrise, and there we will wait for you in the dunes with a breakfast in the dunes, a champagne breakfast. It is such a memorable experience. Typically, when I talk about my destinations, actually, I wouldn't really go through accommodation, because very often, like if you look at my other destinations, like Iceland and Norway, very often it's just like it's a bed, it's where you sleep at night. Otherwise, you're out exploring. But it's actually very different when it comes to Namibia, because in Namibia, the lodges are so incredible. And in so many places in Namibia, it is actually part of your experience, because these lodges are so fantastic. So I just want to give you a little taste of some of our favorites. In Sossus Flay area, my favorite here is Le Mirage. This is a 5-star lodge and spa. And it is this very bizarre looking palace located in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sand dunes. And I thought it was a bit weird, but when I got there, it just all made sense how it was built into the surrounding nature. Fantastic service, huge rooms with tremendous service level. There is a spa, like I said, and of course a refreshing pool, like we have at all of our lodges in Namibia, because you want to jump in the pool around midday when it's hottest. Kulala Desert Lodge actually also has a special place in my heart for a very unique reason. So firstly, let me tell you that it's kind of interesting how this lodge managed to build, kind of sneak behind, and was built right there behind the sand dunes themselves. So when you're out having dinner at the lodge or just walking around there, you have the sand dunes themselves literally as your viewpoint. Kolala Desert Lodge, why I love it so much as well, it's a tented feel. with a thatched roof. But inside it's sort of basic, but has everything you need. Comfortable bed, warm shower. But my favorite part is you walk here behind, up onto the roof, and you ask for a sky bed. So when you check into the lodge, you can say, yes, please, I would love a sky bed, and they will actually make a bed up here on the roof, and you can sleep under the stars. When I went there last time, I couldn't fall asleep at all because I had the Milky Way shining like mad right above my head. Here's another example of some of the great lodges we have in the south in Sossusvlei, Desert Homestead. This is actually how many lodges in Namibia are built, where you have this one main building, and then each room is its own unit dotted around. So typically in Namibia, there's a lot of privacy, there's a lot of space that we can use. And for example, here you can see the picture from one of the units. The main area of the lodge typically is where you will find the restaurant, the pool, and obviously the main area. Now I'm taking you from Sossusvlei. We're heading back northbound again because we don't have time to go all the way down south. But these are the highlights. And here we have the town, the wonderful town of Swakopmund, which is a coastal town, beautifully nestled with the Namib Desert in the backyard and the Atlantic Ocean in the front. It's not your typical beach resort though, because we're on the wrong side of the continent. We're on the Atlantic Ocean side. So it's not a beach resort destination. It's more, Swakopmund is Namibia's adventure capital, adventure paradise, because this is where we play. This is where we go and we play in the sand dunes, and we have so much to show you and offer. And also Swakopmund itself is such a charming little town. As you can see here, we use the dunes a lot as a playground. Here I am with my sister goofing around in the dunes. You can go camel riding, quad biking. My son over here enjoying a sandboarding experience, sliding down the sand dunes. This lighthouse here is iconic to the town. It's sort of a landmark of Swakopmund. This is also Namibia is a German colony, so Swakopmund would be kind of a mecca of the German influence. Here you will really feel the German influence in the architecture, in the food, and so on. So it's a lovely town also to stroll around in and spend some free time. We have a beautiful African market right down by the beach. And here, this place in the top left is very unique because we take you from your accommodation in Swakopmund. We do a bit of dune bashing in a 4x4 vehicle and drive in the sand dunes. We take you to a viewpoint of a place called Sandwich Harbor. This is the only place in the world where you can see sand dunes crashing into the ocean. So this is where the Namib Desert literally meets the ocean. It's a very unique place and it is absolutely breathtaking to visit. We also go out on sea. So we have marine tours where you can go out in search of whales. It's quite rare to see whales though. It's mainly for dolphins. And we also have seals and pelicans who have become so comfortable with the boats that they come right on board the boat with you. So it's quite an experience. And here in the middle, my personal favorite, because I think that was my 13th jump, I think. So you can go skydiving in Swakopmund, tandem skydiving over the oldest desert in the world, which is very unique. Not going to go into accommodation detail in Swakopmund because that's where you have your typical hotels. In Swakopmund, we have everything from 2-star up to 5-star. We have self-catering, we have apartment hotels, we have everything. It's a very well-serviced town accommodation-wise. Just to demonstrate a couple of our favorites would be Hansa Hotel, which is Namibia's oldest hotel, very German influenced, and Swakopmund Hotel, which is Swakop's 5-star property. From Swakopmund, we're driving here northbound and we're driving along the Skeleton Coast, the very famous Skeleton Coast of Namibia. This is on the way here. You will, for example, find one of the famous shipwrecks because there are lots of shipwrecks dotted around the Skeleton Coast of Namibia. So we drive a bit up here, but then we're going back inland to a magical place called Damara Land. I love Damara Land. It sometimes when I'm there, I find it hard to believe that it's a place on Earth. It is so incredible in beauty. The surroundings are like something you've never seen before. All of these rocky mountains, endless space and landscape. And here you will get to experience some of the beautiful Namibian culture. Here in the top right, for example, is the Himba. Himba is a bit of a signature tribe, if I can say it that way, in Namibia. It's quite a famous tribe um, because the Himbas are from Namibia only. They're from the north, but they've migrated a little bit further south because of tourism. So the Himba are unique in the way that they still dress and live and behave exactly like they always have done. So they haven't modernized to modern living, which is fascinating. Um, if you're lucky and driving around Damaraland, you might find some of them along the side of the road where they have put up these little shacks where they're selling their jewelry, because they're also best known for their incredible skills in making all kinds of jewelry. As you can see, they love to decorate themselves in their jewelry. And what's famous about the Himbas as well is their use of clay. So they use clay both to protect their skin from the sun. That's why they're kind of reddish in color, and also as their hair fashion, as you can see from the picture here. So they use it a lot as fashion, the use of clay. In the bottom picture here, this is the Damara tribe. The Damara tribe is a huge, huge tribe in Namibia, but they have modernized actually. So they don't live this way still. However, we have a Damara Living Museum where they very proudly greet you as a visitor and want to show you and tell you all about their fantastic culture and how they used to live and how they use herbs as medicine and food. And they show you how they make fire. They show you how they make all kinds of tools and the games they play, and then they sing and dance for you. It's a very authentic, real experience. That I can promise you, because I always wanted to feel very real, and that's what the Damaras are. It's one of my favorite tribes because they're always just so happy. They just live with happiness and singing and make do with what they have. Damaraland is also home to two very unique things. One of them is the rock engraving sites of the San Bushmen tribe. So the San Bushmen are nomads and they actually move in the southern parts of Africa. So between Angola, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa. So they're nomads. In Damaraland, you will find incredible rock engraving sites where you go with a guide and you walk around these amazing areas, and the guide will tell you all about what these engravings mean to the San Bushmen. Damaraland is also home to what I mentioned earlier, the incredible desert adapted elephant, which can only be found in two places in the whole world. That is Namibia and Mali. It's a very unique site. So what's the desert elephant, you ask? It is the African elephant. It is. It simply has adapted to the very rough conditions of the desert. So they are a bit smaller. They're sturdier for sure. They have stronger trunks. Is it trunks in English? I think so. They're the elephant trunk. It's stronger because it's harder for them to find water. So they have to dig deeper in order to find water, because Namibia actually has a lot of underground rivers flowing all the way from the rainforests of Congo. So the elephant can dig very deep in search of water. Their feet are flatter than the African elephants because they have to walk on sand dunes and the desert. They've actually been seen sliding down sand dunes. In fact, I actually saw one do that just 3 weeks ago. So this is an incredible experience where we take you out in open safari vehicles from your lodge in search of the desert adapted elephants. And we usually know whereabouts they're roaming, even though it's a very small herd actually that we have in Namibia. But we usually know whereabouts they are roaming. So we will go in search of them and hopefully be successful. Um, some of my favorite lodges in this area. Tweefelfontein Country Lodge. This one, do you remember when I told you that Namibia put conservation into its constitution? That's not just animals. A very good example of how they are careful of this is also building lodges. You cannot just buy land in Namibia and build a lodge however you want to. You have to go through a huge process in order to get approval of building your lodge and how exactly you will do it. It has to fit perfectly in harmony with nature. And Tweefelfontein is a very good example of this, how it is built incredibly well in its surroundings. And actually, it's almost hard to find it. It's only when you drive all the way up to it that you actually realize, oh, hang on, that's my lodge. It's amazing. The surroundings are amazing, and it's kind of built in the rocks as well. So this would be a room, it's a beautiful thatched roof, of course, a refreshing pool. But you see these rocks here, which are located right outside the main building. This inside here, we have some San Bushman engravings. And because of all of this that I've told you, the way they built it and the Bushman engravings actually makes this lodge a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Which is very unique. So in Tweefelfontein, you can sleep in a UNESCO World Heritage Site lodge. Dora Navas, look at the surroundings. The nature around it is unbelievable. This is another lodge that I love in the area. And as you can see in the bottom picture here, that's the main area, like I told you earlier, and then these units dotted all around. And you can see how far away they are actually from each other. So this is incredible peace that you get and privacy. Look at the unit. I mean, the size of it is larger than my house here. It is absolutely huge, wonderful comfort, and obviously my favorite thing is that you have this humongous terrace to yourself, very sheltered as well, where you can open the door and drag out your bed and sleep underneath the stars if you want to. That's obviously optional. Now, from Tomorrowland here in Namibia, I'm on the map again, I'm sorry. We're going up to the famous Etosha National Park. Etosha, definitely Namibia's most famous safari experience. That is Etosha. Etosha is, in fact, Africa's third largest national park, which is quite interesting. If you look at the map here, you can see the blue over there. That's the Etosha salt pan. It is so huge that it can be seen from space. And it's very unique as well, the size of this salt pan. But the entire national park, now picture this, is the size of Holland. So the national park is the size of Holland. So just imagine how big the national park is, let alone the country, because now you can maybe put that into perspective in regards to the entire country. So this is where you have your incredible Namibian safari experience. Here you go around in search of the magnificent animals. Big five, that's what everyone talks about, obviously. Namibia does have the big five, but in Etosha, we're actually missing the buffalo. So the buffalo only lives here on the Capri Strip, which is above Botswana and connecting to Zimbabwe. So in Etosha, we have the other big four, but we also obviously have the zebra and giraffe and rhino and so many antelopes and all of the incredible wildlife. When it comes to lodging in Etosha, this is quite interesting because inside the national park itself, we only have lodges that are completely government owned and run. And I'm very sorry to say, but that's very poor service of those lodges, and there's only a handful of them anyway. But it's actually very poor service level, and we don't feel it's your proper African, or at least definitely not Namibian experience, because we have very high service level in our lodges. So what we do is we typically use the lodges just outside the gate. And there we have privately owned lodges, which offer the comfort and quality and service that we require for our trusted and valued guests. Here is just an example of it. Toshari is the top two pictures on the right, and which is on by the south gate. And then we have Mokuti, the two pictures here on the left, which is on the east side. Let me show you that on a map. So if you look at Etosha National Park over here, the way that we feel is absolutely best to explore the park is to actually stay by the southern gate and also by the eastern gate. And then when you move between the southern and the eastern, or vice versa, depending on your route, you actually use that day to drive through the entire national park. We find this important to do because the variety of animals are different, whether you're on the western side or the eastern side. So if you stay 1 or 2 nights on the south side, 1 or 2 nights on the east side, you can be guaranteed that you're getting the most out of your stay for your safari in Namibia. So we always plan it and recommend it this way. What we also have just outside the gates of Etosha, interestingly enough, is that we have a number of private game reserves. The difference of a national park and a private game reserve is quite simple. It's government run and it's privately run. So private game reserves are privately owned and run, and typically, therefore, that much better quality and service level. As an example, on the south side here, we have Ongava. Ongava, as you can see, is absolutely breathtaking. And what you can do if you stay in these private games, they are pricier, definitely pricier. But if you stay in one of those, you can get the best of both worlds because you can explore in the private game reserve their animals, and you can also explore inside the national park. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. On the east side, we have Onguma, for example. So we have private game reserves on each side. Onguma, and what I love about these private game reserves that we have in Namibia as well is that we have a variety of accommodation within those. So Onguma is one of the best examples that within the same private game reserve, we have lots of animals, water holes, and here you can see in the top picture, this is the fort. So this is Onguma's 5-star property. Then we have the camp, which is over here. And this is the main lodge, the main camp, and this is very family friendly. Sorry. Then we have for the more adventurous, we have a tented camp here, the adventure tented camp. So these private game reserves, they're very interesting that they accommodate to very different needs and budgets. We're going back towards the south part now, and here we have Okonjima. Okay, I'm going to try not to talk for 20 minutes now about Okonjima because I could. I love Okonjima. Okonjima is a private game reserve, but further south in Etosha, and it is home to the Africat Foundation, a place that's very, very, very high held in my heart. This is where you will see, as a very good example, how dearly we care about our cat population in Namibia, cheetah in particular, because we have the highest cheetah population in the world. So Africat Foundation, you can visit here the information center where they will tell you all about the work that they do to rescue the cats, how orphaned and injured cats, how they rehabilitate them to put them back out in nature, but also how they work with the community close by. They work closely with the farmers in the community to help them build higher fences, collar the cats so we can warn them if the cats are coming close by, because when the cats hunt the farmers' goats, for example, they are left with nothing. So obviously the farmers shoot the cats as soon as they see them. So we're educating them, building higher fences, and so on. And when you stay at the lodge, for example, then a percentage of what you spend there goes to the local community. And I love that about this place. In the area, you can also stay at Ochiwa, which is another private game reserve. Again, if you look at the map, we're kind of perfecting the circle here. Okonjima and Ochiwa are just very close to each other. And Ochiwa is most famous for its very healthy population of rhino. So you're quite likely to see rhino if you go on a safari here. Beautiful lodge, very accommodating, very friendly service. And the great thing about Ottawa as well is that you can stay there. It's a bit more affordable than Okonjima, but you can actually pop over to Okonjima for a day visit to Africat. So there you can both, stay at Ottawa, but then visit Africat as well, all depending on your budgets and likings. So here you can see where I've taken you. So just to summarize, here's the capital and the airport where you will probably land. Down south, Sossusvlei with the sand dunes, Swakopmund, the coastal town, Damaraland with the desert adapted elephant, Etosha National Park on each side, remember? And then in the Otjiwarongo area, we're focused on the cats, and then back to Windhoek. This route should take you approximately 2 weeks. Touring on ground. What I actually also really adore about Namibia when you consider safari is the variety that you're getting. You're not just, in national parks and going on guided safaris twice a day for 5 days. At least that's not my cup of tea. So in Namibia, you're kind of going to Damaraland to focus on the desert elephant, the unique one, Etosha, the typical African safari, and in this area, we're focused on the cats. So you get kind of a variety of the experience that you're getting with our animals. How do you travel in Namibia? As I mentioned way in the beginning, which you probably feel like was 3 hours ago, um, It is one of the safest countries to travel to, and Namibia is ranked the safest country in Africa. So self-driving is, in fact, the most popular way to travel around Namibia because it is so safe and it's so easy. And they drive on the wrong side of the road, like you guys do, which is the left side. So, I mean, for that alone, that makes it that much easier for you guys to explore Namibia in a self-drive vehicle. So you can see here, as an example, in the top right picture, we have these are typically the vehicles that we rent for our customers. And if you're very adventurous or on a budget, we also have tents on top and great camping places around Namibia. Many people like to mix and match as well, bit of camping and then lodging in between. So maybe if you're on the adventurous side but don't want to camp necessarily for 2 weeks and so on. But we have this option. You can see here we also have small group options. You can see the vehicle in the top left. So there we can, like big families, group of friends, we have these comfortable vehicles here. And in the middle, this is where you could join on a fully guided group trip, like what we offer actually, starting 2022, where you just jump in with a group maximum of 8 people. We never travel with coaches, and then you're kind of in a safari vehicle together with a group and a local driver guide throughout the entire program. And increasingly popular in Namibia are the fly safaris. Every lodge in all of Namibia has its own airstrip. So you can have a aircraft and a pilot at your own disposal throughout your entire program, and you don't have to drive at all because the distances are actually quite far. You have to consider that in your Namibia plan. But for this, you would literally fly between the lodges where the lodge vehicle will pick you up at the airstrip and you will stay at a lodge and go exploring with the lodge before you head back to your aircraft to take you flying to the next lodge. And that's it. So I think I'll just open up for questions. I think I very briefly summarized Namibia for you there, hopefully.
That was more than brief, Ranvik. That was excellent. No, that's not over talking it either. That was brilliant. Thank you ever so much. There are some questions. I know that Carol that was on has had to leave us, so I'll just come back to her questions in a second. But you did actually answer the last question that's just come up, which was from Hannah, which was about how safe is the safari and the country in general, which you answered, which was Namibia being one of the safest countries or the safest country in Africa. So, and Ranvik, you've just come back from there recently again as well, haven't you? So
I did, yeah. I needed a COVID break, so I actually popped over to Namibia.
Brilliant. So from a safari sort of safety point of view, so the country's safe, but is there anything that you would want to add about safety on the safari or?
Well, the thing is that when you're self-driving, for example, you are obviously on your own, driving around the country. When you are, for example, remember I told you you're driving from one of the gates to the other in Etosha, and you're actually doing a bit of your own self-guided safari through the park. For that one, you're not allowed to leave your vehicle for the safety reasons. But inside the park, the entire everything is very well marked, so it's impossible for you to get lost. And you also have to register once you enter the gate. You have to register, and the national park is only open from sunrise to sunset. And if you haven't arrived at either of the gates at sunset or just before sunset, we will go looking for you. But you're not allowed to leave your vehicle. There are toilet stops along the way, though, which are safe to use. But other than that, when it comes to safaris, we also recommend, obviously, to use the lodge's safari option. So even if you're self-driving, we also encourage and often include guided safaris in the open vehicles with a local guide. So you kind of do a bit of both. And it's all extremely safe.
Great. So there's some great options there and some great sort of things in place to look after you. So hopefully, Hannah, that answers your question. Just going back, I'm just going to shoot back to the beginning of the chat. I'm still recording for the minute just so that we can capture some of these questions. Do most people hire guides or discover on their own? I think you've kind of touched on that, really. There's a bit of both, isn't there?
There is definitely a bit of both. It really depends on what kind of traveler you are. It is very common to explore it on your own, self-driving, but it's also actually very, very popular to join one of these guided group departures as well, because then you don't have to think about anything, and the local guide will take care of you from start to finish. So it's a nice
Brilliant.
mix.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have those options, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
fab.
whatever suits you. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a question about food. Food, always food. What is the food like?
Um, it's actually it's a very interesting mix of German and African. So the German influence is there, especially in Swakopmund. So there you will find Wiener Schnitzel and bratwurst and pretzels and what do you call those big beers? Boots of beers,
Wow. Okay. Like
and things like
kegs
that.
and things. Yeah.
Yeah, and but typically, that's mainly Swakopmund, a German influence. In the lodges and in the countryside, the main dish for Namibians is game. So they eat a
Mhm.
lot of game, the antelopes. So it's like oryx meat, kudu meat, and they're very much into meat. And they braai, which is the African word for barbecue, which is meat. So there's a lot of meat, but they actually cater surprisingly well for vegetarians and vegans as well. I actually had one
Great.
vegan in one of my groups, and she told me at the end of the trip, she said, I've been traveling around the entire world and I've never been given as good a variety of options to eat as a vegan as in Namibia, which I was
Brilliant.
surprised with because they love their meat. So,
Yeah. No,
um,
that's great to know, isn't it? That's
so
really
it
good
is,
feedback. Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent.
So it's,
Fantastic.
mm,
And just one other question for me, because I know this has come up from when I've looked at itineraries. Is there a minimum age with the safaris from a children's perspective for Namibia? Because there is in a lot
yeah.
of destinations, isn't there?
Yes, there is typically, but it varies. It very much varies not only on the lodges, but also the actual activities. So if you look at, for example, Okonjima has guided walks, which children are not allowed to join unless you're 10 years old.
Okay.
In a lot of the lodges that we use in Etosha, for example, we have typically a 6-year age limit, 6 or 8 years, depending on the lodge. But we will actually always be careful to cater for the young ones as well. You just have to have a private vehicle then.
Yeah.
So it does vary between different activities, different lodges. So if you request it with us, then of course tell us the age, and we will ensure to make a program that fits the age, and they will
They're
not be
quite
left
low
out of it.
ages, really, though, aren't they, compared to some safari destinations? That's still to be able to consider somebody up down to the age of 6 to 8 to 10. That's still fairly,
Exactly. It's
yeah,
actually all very children friendly in
very
Namibia,
good.
actually. And I mean, funnily enough, only a year ago, no, just over a year ago, last year, I took my little nephew to Namibia, and he was 1 years old at the time.
Wow,
He just joined me on all the safaris. It was not a problem.
great,
It was fantastic.
fantastic,
And all the lodges had the baby seats and the baby cribs, everything ready. So it's very children friendly in Namibia.
brilliant. Oh,
Hmm.
that's great. I'm going to open it out. I know most of you that are on now are on mute, but I'll just stop the recording now.